Yo, what's going on, you guys? We are back and we are about to give you guys a full-on exclusive spoiler review for The Boy Behind the Door. What's going on, Lucas? What's going on, Jorge? How you doing, bro?
What's going on? Still trying to
We
get through this one.
so I would give you guys a little bit of a skinny on this one because me and Lucas back in 2020 at Fantastic Fest were given the opportunity to checking out The Boy Behind the Door, and we did get to screen it, and it ended up being one of our favorite movies of 2020. One of our most entertaining, one of the best movies of 2020. We had an opportunity of being able to actually interview both the directors for another film that we'll talk about a little bit later on. But now we have another person that has seen it, and he's got a fresh take on it. And I'm talking about Jorge. So, Jorge, we've talked a lot about this. Y'all can go see our spoiler review or non-spoiler review. Jorge, going into this film, right? You only knew the name. You heard our recommendation of seeing it, but did you know, what was your anticipation for it? And then what was the delivery? How did it make you feel after finishing it? And you can be, this is a spoiler review, guys. So if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. It's available on Shudder right now. Go and check it out. But all right, I'll leave the floor to you.
No. So I remember you guys talking about this movie, and I completely forgot the name of it. And literally, once this came out and I watched it, and then it was literally until 5-10 minutes before this is actually, right now we're going at it, where everything just clicked that this was the movie. I will say, I literally had zero expectations going into it. I knew nothing about it going into it, and it is a terrifying movie. For someone who has two kids, like this is worst case scenario. You can throw out like zombies at me and all this, King Kong, that's all, fake, and I know that. But you talk about like kidnapping kids, and I'm like, that hits a special part in me. But no, this movie, it was so well done. And when you think about it, I would say 85, maybe 90% of this movie, it was literally just two kids recording it. So to be able to get as good of an acting job as you got with these two kids, and like that was just beyond spectacular for me. Like, hats off to both of them. But yeah, no, it was this for a good day now. I've been just sitting on my emotions on this one, to say the least. And I know it brings a very sweet message of like friendship, like kind of like, friendship till the end of it. And from start to finish, you kind of see that, and you feel it throughout the whole movie. But yeah, no, this movie was wild, to say the least. That's my nice take on it, before we kind of jump into it with all the spoilers.
Right. All right. So again, me and Lucas, we haven't seen it in quite a while, but it left such a lasting impression on us. I don't think we could ever forget it. So Lucas, real quick, man. One of the things that you've wanted to talk about this whole entire time that we couldn't talk about before because it was a non-spoiler. Where do you want to kind of drive this? I'm just curious.
It was a female who was doing all of this in the entire damn movie. That is sick and disturbing. It was a woman who was the main protagonist in this movie.
Right. Oh my gosh.
That's the part we kept on hinting towards that we couldn't say
anything.
We just kept on saying, like, when you find out about it, it's gonna like blow your mind that who's the person who's doing all of this to these two little kids, along with the directors who tortured these two little kids throughout this whole movie, and then proceeded to torture one of them in another movie. It is
right.
It's just amazing. Again, it's always amazing to me the performances they were able to get out of Lonnie and is it Dylan? Oh man,
Ezra
Ezra,
and
Ezra,
Lonnie.
Yeah.
Ezra and
Yeah.
Lonnie. It's amazing. I don't know where did I get Dylan from. Jeez Louise, but it's amazing the level of performance they got out of them too.
Dylan
in
was his
this
name
movie.
in the gin.
That's see, it's again, it's just amazing the performances they got out of these two. As Jorge said, this is a movie led by two children. Everyone else is a supporting character in this movie, and especially kudos go out to Lonnie, who portrays the dread of the film and managed to carry it on his back the entire time. That was always a performance. When we talked about it when we reviewed it, when we did our end of the year list, and it ended up on both of our end of the year lists.
Crazy.
And we talked about this movie. It was just blown away by the kids' performances.
Yeah.
Like this is masterful, thrilling horror at its best. Like you're not gonna see.
Yeah.
I said it in 2020, you weren't gonna see a better horror movie than this. And at this point, I can almost say in 2021, you're not gonna see a better horror movie than this. It's some really, really good ones out there, but this one just feels like a step above almost everything you could see. And from this, it's amazing that from this we can see the jump in direction to the gin.
Yeah.
And just again, the way they parallel kids here and the way they're able to pull these performances out of them is amazing. But this is just nerve-wracking. This entire movie is nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Like there's no way you should be able to sleep after this movie if you have teenage boys, because how often do teenage boys just go off and go play?
Right.
And then this happens? Man.
They weren't even teenage boys.
Well, preteen boys. That's what I mean. Like, they were like 12.
Yeah, that was my thing. I'm like, I send my kids out in the cul-de-sac all the time to go play like soccer or kick the ball, and now I'm like, like not today, not today.
Yeah, and just to give you guys kind of like a backdrop of some of this, I mean, you guys have seen it, we hope, but if you haven't, the beginning of the movie is really just these kids playing baseball. Like they just chilling. They had a baseball game. They were walking out together, and then something terrible happens. They just get abducted, and the whole entire film, you know, you're watching through Lonnie's eyes, where it's like he's trying to figure out whether his friend's alive, whether or not he should go in the house, and when I think about the main antagonist, which is the lady, and what she's really doing, they showed indications that she's been doing this for years, having people go in and possibly, you know, dismember, kill, execute, abuse, sexually abuse kids, and locking them away like that. And, you know, nobody would have ever suspected her of doing it. And it's kind of like you don't get the understanding of how sick she is until she starts to fight Lonnie's character.
Oh God, yeah.
There's a shot, and I'm gonna try to pull it up really quick, where it was kind of like Lana had her underneath the ropes. I was kind of like, okay, he's gonna get her out.
Putting Jorge through it in this review, or it's like, I don't want to see that again.
No, it's I told Sam right before, and I was like, that one scene. And I'm just gonna say her thumb. When her thumb just disappears for a hot second, I lost it at that point.
So Lonnie got the upper hand on her for a second. He outsmarted her, had her locked down, and she got the gun and she shot him. And to make matters worse, it wasn't just the fact that he was bleeding. Like I give all the props to him as an actor, bro. He literally, I was like, man, this kid's about to die. And he's trying to lip his way away, and she grabbed him and stuck her freaking thumb in his wound. And I said, oh my God. And this is the thing. Me and Lucas kept talking about different things where it's kind of like they're still kids. Like at one moment, Lonnie was like, all right, cool, I'm going to get the car. he don't know how to drive. And like I was telling Lucas, I was like, I want to be mad about this as as a critic, but I was like, realistically, he probably don't know how to do that.
Hey,
and
that's the appeal of this movie is that you got to constantly because if these were adults, you would say that's a dumb decision to make there. But then you got to realize these are two children.
Yes.
They're trying to get away, but there's so much stuff they would not know how to do or necessarily know how to react to.
Right.
And that's the real terror of this film is that, man, these are, if someone is willing to do this to children, like that's another level of sickness.
Yeah, David and Chris were talking about you, just so you know. Even though we love you, but you put these young actors through it for our entertainment, and I don't know how I feel about it ultimately. But
I loved it. Every bit of it. Every bit of it. Let's understand that. This is on my favorite app in the world, which is Shudder. And like this is one of my favorite movies ever. I can watch. I'm sick enough to watch this movie on repeat. When the Jinn comes out, I'll be watching these Jones back to back repeatedly. Like this is, I am that invested in the filmmaking of both of these two films. Like I've been waiting a year. A year for this movie to come out.
Yeah, because at the time we didn't know where the distribution was going to go. We looked at the Fan Fest. It wouldn't have distribution rights yet.
Yep.
And we were kind of like, man, who's gonna pick it up? Like, is it going to the theater? Is it going to? We were hoping best case scenario Shudder, and sure enough, it happened. And so, but yeah, dude. So I guess we can talk through some of the other things about this. So when the very beginning of the movie, right, and Lonnie is in the car, and he's in the trunk. And he gets out of the trunk, right? And he's about to run. He's on the road and he's about to run to leave to go get help or just run for his life. But he has this, and this from a filmmaker standpoint, I give them all the credit for this. There's a flash that happens and he just literally pictures his friend, his best friend on the beach looking at him. And I was kind of like, I think me and Lucas talked about it briefly. It's kind of like, as much as we would never want, our children to ever go through something like this, the amount of love and concern that he was having for his friend is so commendable. It's so touching, but it's dangerous. As a parent, I would never tell him to do that. But then part of me would be proud that he would have a willingness to try. And it's so hard because that moment, that decision that he makes, is the make or break of how this story goes. Yep. The level of devotion that he has to put this in his own hands, so to speak. But go ahead.
It shows us the level of their friendship.
Yeah.
Like you normally, especially in horror movies, if you have a duo or group of friends, you got to show where the level of friendship is, because if not, it's not believable.
Right.
Like in teenage horror movies, you see it all the time. Like they leave their friends. That's believable because they're not close. But here it was showing like, I can't leave him no matter what. I got to get him out of there.
Right.
And it's that determination. And that's what leads you to get even more feelings with these two kids.
Yeah.
Because again, as a parent, you would think like, well, as a parent, if we're being honest here, you would want your child to run.
Yeah.
You would not want your child to go back and save his friend.
Right.
And the moment he does it in this movie, that to me, that's when the movie started to go in another level. And then all the actions afterwards, you're just like, wow. Like the whole theme of this is love and everything that happens afterwards. Because it was a multiple times that Lonnie's character could have left and didn't.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, I guess they haven't changed anything or edited anything since you guys saw it and the release?
Nope.
Or have they?
Nah. It's still the same. Still exactly the same. Because one of the things that we even talked about is that Lonnie, there was no guarantee that his friend was even still alive.
Yep.
They didn't know he was even still alive. And it's like the moment he got out of there, it's kind of like, realistically, you're like, what if he's not? What if he's dead?
Yeah.
Like, what if you go in there and he's literally already been mauled, you know? And I think there was a moment where he was sorting through some clothes, where I think he thought about the fact that his friend might be dead. And I think that's when my heart started really breaking. Because I didn't know. Us as viewers, we didn't know whether or not the boy was really dead.
Well, that was after. So he found Ezra at that point, and he was trying to find the key or something.
The key to get him out the room.
Yeah. And I think that was that before or after he was hiding under her bed, and she took a shower and all that stuff. But he ran, and I remember when he found that, his biggest thing was it focuses on him looking at some of the shirts that have just blood splattered all over it.
Because it shows him the other kids that it happened to.
It happened to.
Yeah, because I think it was that, and then once he opened up the safe, the one part that I thought was very, at least for me, very impactful, and just very minor, but I don't know if you noticed when he opened up the safe, he grabbed the roll of money that technically belonged to his friend. And he held that for a minute before he, put it back and grabbed the key when he saw the key in there.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just one of those things where I'm like it's heartbreaking, but it's like that's almost what he envisioned like as his friend. It was just this roll of hundreds.
Yeah.
And then he put it back. But no, and then I think another part too, which I thought was kind of wild and trying to figure out which way Ezra was going to go was after he takes out like the vent where he like rips out his fingernail.
Nails.
Yeah. That nail scene, first of all, was But when he rips it out and you kind of see that he's about to, and I wasn't sure where he was going. Was he going to hit the chain with his with that vent cover, or if he was going to try to do like a saw type of thing?
Situation. I was like, I didn't know.
That was my whole thing with that scene. But yeah, no, this movie there's just so much in it, and I'm still like, and the crazy thing is like, it's not a long movie. This movie was like an hour and like 20 some minutes. Like it goes by super quick. But there is so much substance in this movie.
And you feel every bit of that because it gets right into the thrilling aspects of this film, which most films don't do. Yeah. Like most films in the genre, they'll set it up and they'll take 30 to 40 minutes to set it up and then give you the last half of it. This one jumped immediately into it to let you know the circumstances that we're in.
Right. Yeah, it was within like 5 minutes of the movie. Like the lady, like freaking. I think for me the scariest part was when he's trying to find his friend after she took the first kid, and he sees the ball, and he's kind of like, Kevin, where are you, Kevin? And she freaking just smashes his head into that tree, and I'm like, oh, he dead. I was like, he's dead, plain and simple. The one thing that I did find weird, or just. And this is probably my only complaint in the movie. 2 complaints. So one was, I need to figure out what towels that lady had that was able to clean up all that blood that quickly. Once the creep died, because that kid cleaned up all that blood real quick. But the second part was, you never hear or like, there's no mention of their parents at all. And you would think if your kid was missing in all this, as soon as they called the cops, like when he got the rotary phone and he called the cops and he said his name, you would think at that point, like, something would be happening. Because even at the end of the movie, they just kind of put the kids, which I thought was a weird one, in the back of like the cop cars, and they're like, you're going to go home now, like it's all over. But in my head, I'm like, one kid lost a fingernail. The other one had like a shot wound. I'm like, no, put him in an ambulance. Like, do something. Like, hey, we're taking you to your parents, or something of that sort. But yeah, that part was.
I would say, I guess the question would be, how far are they away from their home?
Yeah.
Because you know,
Oh, actually,
unfortunately, the say it in the scariest way humanly possible. If you take a kid a town over, even if a police report is filed, it's a chance it won't reach them.
Not at
no,
all.
you know what? You're right. Because I think wasn't it as soon as the first scene happened, it says like 6 hours earlier or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, it did.
So actually, yeah. So you're right. So that could be because technically it was almost like an entire 24 hours.
And yeah, so there's just no there for that. It would be no telling where
Yeah.
they are at that point in time. So, like, their parents could have filed a missing persons report in their city, but it's going to take at least a couple days if you take them anywhere outside that city for anyone else to know these kids are actually missing.
Yeah. And to be honest, Jorge, I think that, and I maybe we'll ask them whenever we interview them, but I think that the directors, I think they wanted to focus on just the kids. I think that they wanted to focus to centrally be on they can only rely on each other to get out of this one way or another. Mm-hmm. Because at a certain point, I was kind of like, is it possible that Lonnie might die getting his best friend out? And I kind of was like, the moment he got shot, I was like, bro, like, you don't shoot a kid in a horror movie. Like, it just doesn't happen, you know? And I kind of was like you, I was kind of like, where's the parents? But I was like, no, this is all focusing on the essence of friendship and love and devotion. And it's kind of like, if you kind of add in like the parents there, you can kind of talk around them, but the focus would still need to be on them. And that's one of the things with, what was the movie, the show we looked at, Fear Street. Fear Street never showed any of the parents. They kind of like focused it in on just the kids for the most part. And I liked that because it kind of kept the feeling of dread as us as actual parents. It's kind of like we're internalizing this situation because it's kind of like, daggone, where's the parents, man? Like, who's protecting them?
In all honesty, that's the horror aspect of this. Without that aspect, this is just a thriller.
Yeah. Actually, no, you're 100% correct. Because for me, that was, and I think I love the fact that when he went to drive the car, like he had, because that is true. Like, no, 10-year-old can jump in a car
and drive one.
Yeah, and I thought it was hilarious when he's like, he turned on the turn signal. He was moving the shifter, and in my head, I'm like, because at first I was like, oh, he's gonna like putter out somewhere, maybe get some help. And when that happened, I'm like, oh, this movie's gonna go dark.
Yeah,
I should say.
I mean, between the car, even though I will say your other gripe is legitimate, because I was wondering the same thing. Like, boy, he cleaned that blood up fast.
Yeah, we were talking about that. We were talking about that after the fact. I was,
but the other funny, very disturbing part, and the other part that lets you know these were children, is when he didn't know how to use a rotary phone.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. He was like, what in the world do I do with this?
Right there. That is something that as a parent, after watching something like this, you're like, no, you are going to learn now how to use this phone. Because I cannot have you pass away or be in a dangerous situation because you don't know how to use a rotary phone. Because he was confused.
He was
just looking like, wait a minute, how is this supposed to? But that would be real for anyone born after the year 2000.
Yeah. True.
And so it's 20-year-olds who probably don't know how to use rotary phones.
I was gonna say, you could say in the late 90s.
Yeah, I mean, we are all part of the last generation that would have ever had. I had a rotary phone growing up.
I was gonna say I had one growing up, so
But anyone after that, they're looking at you like you're crazy. And I think it was a great thing to put that in there, just again to bring you back to remember that these are children.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't know these little things, and it's little things like that that kept them imprisoned in this horrible situation. But it was with realism, so you felt it more.
Right.
Like you up there cheering, like, baby, I need you to learn. Just put your finger in there. 9, spin it.
Yeah, I think that it's funny as as fun as it is talking about it, remembering myself watching it was just so terrifying because kind of like he didn't understand how to do certain stuff, but he was really trying. Like he was really trying desperately to survive or try to save his friend, one or the other. And this was the messed up part. When they finally got out, right? And I was like, what's that thing around his neck? And they got out.
Man.
And I realized that this was a shock collar on this little boy. I almost started crying. Like, low-key, I was like...
It's like they taking all your hope away.
How you
like
gonna
you
do
all
that,
are just
bro?
thriving on taking my hope away for these children.
And it's kind of like, I mean, it's kind of like you want both kids to make it. You don't want them to have to sacrifice. Because at a certain point, he was like, look, just go without me. Like, just go. I was like, no. At this point now, like, y'all going to have to just make it through it.
You're either going to make it or you both die.
These are two little kids in this movie. Man, like, to think, I want to say this movie may have been shot 2.5 years ago.
Probably. I mean,
so that means they were 10 and 11. Like, how do you pull this great a performance out of these two? I remember one point I championed for Lonnie to get an award nominations for this movie. Because I said, this is too good. Like, his performance is way too good in this movie for it not to get that type of attention.
Or even the one scene where he's putting like the kitchen knife into the door and the kitchen knife breaks and he has to take it out and he cuts his fingers.
Yeah.
Like, you literally, like, that's exactly how a kid would react.
Yep.
And he's like, it was so, like, I will say that, like, both the kids, and I think more Lonnie than Ezra, because Ezra was, I hate to say it, like, chained up for most of the movie. And then it was like, you know, other than him getting shot with, like, the shock collar, which sucked. But, yeah, like, Lonnie just crushed it, like, in every way. It was so impressive. And you could feel his emotion, and, like, even with his yelling, like, it's like that stupid thumb scene, and just hearing him yell, like what he was envisioning during that scene or whatnot. But it's like, that was such a fear yell, you know, like voice cracking, just did not, like, that was flight or fight type of thing. And when he cut her thumb, oh dear God, was I so happy. I've never been happier. I was just like,
you felt like these actors were really going through it. Like, I mean, I don't know any other way to kind of put it, because even with Ezra, it's like, the problem with Ezra for me, which was more haunting, was that he wasn't on screen a lot of the time.
So you didn't know if he was alive or dead or anything.
I didn't know if this kid was getting, like, hurt or sexually abused. I had no, I was literally left with my own emotions, just like Lonnie was. And like, and what they did really well is that you could hear his voice through the vents.
Yeah.
And I think that his trembling and also his bravery coming through with that performance, dude, in the short amount of time that he was in it, it's just amazing, dude. Like, they pulled some amazing things out of these kids, but they set the atmosphere in such a way that it pulls us in even more, because even with all these different shots right here, like, these shots, man, the way that they set the tone is just insane for a generic horror movie. Like, they put so much work into this that you would be like, wait, what am I watching here? And that's how we felt. Like, first time we watched it, we were just like, what is this? You know?
This completely blew me away. I will never forget that, because I was not, I think for the Fantastic Fest that year, the movie with Bella Thorne was the big one, supposedly.
Yeah, it was a girl, I believe.
Yeah, that was supposed to be the big one. And I remember the night that this was going to debut, I hit Sam up and I said, hey, you know, the boy behind the door comes on tonight. I said, you're going to check it out? He's like, yeah, I think I'm going to check it out. I said, cool. I said, I'm going to watch it because the little dude from This Is Us is in it. And, and hey, I like him on This Is Us. So I'm going to check this movie out.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that got trapped in this movie. And boy, I have been thinking about this movie since that day and waiting for other people to see it and experience it.
Right.
Because to me, that was the most important part about it. Like this is a small independent film. And for people like us who love film, when you get a small independent film that you feel is one of the best movies you've seen, you just want more people to see it. I remember posting about this movie and people calling me like, hey, so where's this movie at that you're talking about? And for me to be like, hey, there's literally no way for you to see it. I don't know when it comes out. Like it blew me away. It completely blew me away. And now, hopefully, everybody who either has Shudder or AMC Plus can see this movie. And that's the most important part because these are two extremely talented filmmakers.
Yeah.
Like it's unbelievable the way they pulled off this and then followed it up with another movie that we see how great Lonnie is in this movie. And we're blown away by him in this movie. And again, as we said, we didn't see much of Ezra in this movie. For them to turn back around and give us a movie with Ezra in one of the best horror settings I've ever seen in my life. The way they shot the Jinn, and to be able to look at this and that and realize just how masterful the direction is on them, it blows me away.
Bruh. I was so surprised. Like, because me and Lucas were like, oh snap, they got another film? Oh, let's get on this. Then we looked at it, it was like,
man,
how could you do this to us again? What?
Hold up. Has Jorge seen the Jinn yet?
No, he hasn't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it.
That's your next assignment.
That's your homework, bro.
so just out of curiosity, because with this movie, realistically, the set was just the house.
Yes.
And then I think in total, I'm trying to think, there was 6 actors in total for this movie?
Very small. Very small movie. That's what makes it so great.
Well, no, yeah, that's what, like, is the other one, the Jinn, is that one's just kind of the same?
Jorge.
That joint is just in an apartment.
I'm about to say the Jinn takes place in a 2-bedroom apartment.
That's it.
It has a total of maybe 4 people in the movie.
Yep.
And when I tell you the tricks they pull off for it to be a 2-bedroom apartment it's some of the best directing I've ever seen.
Well, I mean, this impressed me so much when you think about how realistically, so there's 6 people in this movie, but for 85% of it is just 2 kids or 1 kid usually.
One kid,
overseeing the whole thing. And ever so often they have a supporting cast in it, you know? But to be able to do as much as they did, and one of the things that I loved was the sound in this movie.
Yeah.
So just hearing him kind of like tiptoeing through the house and all, like, it was almost, the lack of soundtrack was more terrifying.
Yes.
Because I know, like, you know, it's like you go to any house, like my house isn't that, you know, that new, but you go up the stairs and there's always that one step that creaks, you know, and it's almost like volume 400 in the middle of the night. And you're just like, and when that happens to him, and you're just like, come on, like, this is all too real. Like, but like, I will happily, like, hats off to this director and all that, because the way that they shot it and the amount of like raw emotion that you get through this movie is phenomenal. And even what was her name? Miss Burden, was that it? The woman who was holding them. I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Miss
So
Burton. Yep.
even with her, like I loved I think it was the scene where she was breaking down the door and
Mm-hmm.
she's just like, just open up the door, just come out. I'm not gonna hurt you. And for her, after like two or three more like asks, like that flip, like the switch just flipped.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And she was just like, open this mother effing door because I'm gonna kill you basically. Like it's just it's phenomenal. And then there's a scene, I think in right after she kind of like walks away for a second where Lonnie looks out the door and the
Yes.
camera just pans out and she's looking back at, oh geez, that one still gives me the creeps just thinking about it. But she's looking like it's just so well done. Like it's one of these movies where like I hate it, but I liked it at the same time.
As a parent, it's your worst nightmare, and
Yeah.
it doesn't feel good, and it's not supposed to. It's supposed to haunt you, and it really still does haunt me.
How about the best horror movies are the ones that stick with you. Like if it's just a run of the mill horror movie, it can be good, it can be bad, but after an hour or so, you're no longer thinking about it.
Right.
This is great because I've been thinking about this movie for a year. Like
Yeah.
it sticks with you. Just because again, the things happen to children in here that you are not expecting to see.
No.
Now, Jorge, did you ever suspect that the person doing this was a girl, like was a woman?
No.
Did you
So
like?
that
And
was
go ahead, go ahead.
no, that was such a huge turn to me because even throughout the way that they filmed it and everything, whenever you even got a glance, you basically saw like
Mhm.
jeans and like boots, and you never really saw her. I think the first reveal when you kind of find out that it's a woman, because even in like the shower scene, like where he's under the bed and she takes off her pants and all that, you really can't you can't tell
You
at
can't
all.
tell.
You can't
It's
tell at all.
once the cop opens the door or she opens the door for the cop,
Mm-hmm.
and when I saw that was a woman, like
It threw you
that,
off, right?
oh dude, that was an uppercut. Because in my head I'm like, how is it like yeah, like I'm like how are you doing this? Like what? Because this
That's what
whole
makes it
time,
more terrifying. You're like, but
yeah,
you could be a mother. Why would you do this?
Right.
yes,
Right. Like,
and
what
it's
is your end game here, lady?
and I hate saying it, but like the creeper guy, like the one dude who entered, the
Yes.
first thing,
Uh-huh.
like you kind of see it, and you're like, yeah, I get it. Like that seems like the type, like cool.
Yeah.
But when you see like a woman that's doing this, you're just like
I think that was
your
the
whole
part.
world gets shattered in a
That's the
way.
part that
Because in
makes
my
it
head,
brilliant is that it's
yeah,
a woman.
but
Yeah.
that part, that one, that was an awesome twist for me. Because I think throughout there's zero hint that it's anything but a man.
Mhm.
And
Right.
even
Right.
so just seeing that, it was like ugh. But yeah, God, that face, ugh.
So again, this is
Again, it's
man.
like there's so many different. Like even this shot right here, it just breaks my whole heart, bruh. Because this is where he gets out and he's like, yeah, I don't know, man.
Well, did you what was it, in the last one of the last scenes where they're
Mhm.
hiding behind the cop car, and I
Mhm.
think that's when he tells Ezra, he's like, just go without me. And it's
Yeah.
almost like that gladiator-esque scene where like he's walking through the field where he's basically just seeing himself at the beach. Like
Yeah.
when that scene happened, in my head I was like, don't tell me that this freaking kid went through all this and he's gonna die. I
Right.
was like, dude, like I was so frustrated for that. And that was maybe 2 seconds of film. But I got so frustrated in those 2 seconds. Like it drove me bonkers. And that's exactly what, I'm guessing what they were trying to achieve. But then it was awesome when Kevin ended up being like, no, like we're doing this together. This scene,
Right.
holy hell, did this scene freak me out. Because she walks, as soon as she walks away, I was like, in my head, I was like, she's gonna get the keys. And when you hear that ding on door unlocked, nope.
You're like, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. I was like, how brutal is this movie, bro? Like, give me a break. Like, and I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you get a semblance of a break because they have this beautiful imagery, you know, of them finally actually making it to the beach and stuff. But
Yeah.
it's kind of like, even though we had that small moment, like, these kids are forever traumatized by this situation, bro. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, I'm just happy they lived. Like,
Yes.
I'm happy they made it through.
Yeah.
Because if one of these kids would have died, I don't know, man. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think that's almost. I think it would have taken away from the greatness if one of them would have died.
See, this is why you got to see the Djinn, Jorge.
See, I don't want to see it. You don't understand. Like, this already traumatized me. I could.
Well,
And you know,
I think you could take the Djinn a little better because it deals with more supernatural elements. So
okay, I'm
that
cool
could
with that.
put you more in the more comfort. But
Don't let them set you up.
when I tell you the things that they put Ezra through in that movie, you're gonna, because when I saw it, I said, "Oh my god!" Like he deserves an award for this. He carries the entire movie.
Yep.
Out of fear in a 2-bedroom apartment, and that's what made it masterful to me. That how dare you? How dare you, Justin and David, set up a set that's a 2-bedroom apartment, and in it you forget it's a 2-bedroom apartment up until the most thrilling moments when you realize this is a kid in a 2-bedroom apartment trying to escape. Like it's same thing with Boy Behind the Door when you realize, wait a minute, this only takes place in a house.
Yep.
Really nowhere else. Once they get in the house, they kind of stay in it all the way up to the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, look, Justin and David, look, we're gonna champion for you guys to get a big IP.
Hey, I've said it.
They said they wanted Cujo when we did an interview for the Djinn, which they'd probably kill. I think Lucas is going higher. I forget what he said.
Look, it is a multitude of kids' properties out there. If Leah passes possibly on doing another set of Fear Street trilogies, they would be great to bring in because it's so many stories left in Fear Street. So if you were to bring them in and say, "Hey guys, how about you pick a story out of this series and do a trilogy based off of it?" Again, to me the door is open for these two.
Yeah,
they're extremely talented filmmakers, and you don't get that anymore.
Right.
Especially filmmakers that can pull performances out of kids. Like I haven't seen someone like this since the other David, Pony Smasher. Yeah. When he was able to, between Lights Out and Annabelle Creation, was it? I think it was Annabelle Creation, the second Annabelle, when he was able to pull those type of performances out of children, which led him to be able to get Shazam because he can pull performances out of children.
Right. So, Jorge, what are your final thoughts and what is your score of this film? We're not going to tell you what our scores are.
I'm about to say, we already gave our scores.
We gave our scores. We know how we feel about this.
So, I think for me, this is top notch. There's very few movies from my point of view that kind of stick with me in a way, either positive or negative, this is one of those that will stick with me for a long time just because it is like any parent's fear and they portray it perfectly. In terms of what I would rate this, I mean, this is easily like 9.5 out of 10, if not a 10 out of 10, like just for the emotional distress that they caused me. I would give it that 10 out of 10. But no, this is just like, this is as close to perfect for a horror thriller that I can think of. Like I've been like, you feel everything in this movie.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that. Like I hate it, but I love it. Because not many movies can do that. And when you do that with such a limited cast, you know, and just such a young cast, like just a raw cast, it's it's amazing. So you know what, I will actually just give this a 10 out of 10 because it has like, this is a movie that I'm literally just still in awe of at the end of the day. So yeah, I don't remember what you guys rated it, but no, this was phenomenal.
What Jorge meant to say is in shock of. He's in shock. We gave. I gave it a 10 out of 10. I think Lucas gave it a 10 out of 10.
I think so. Yeah.
We were beyond blown away by it. We're going to be interviewing them really soon. So Jorge, if you had any question to ask these two directors right now, what would it be?
Gosh, that is a great one. I would want to know if they had, because you always wonder with directors that haven't blown up yet or things like that. If you had like unlimited resources, like what would be your what would be like their baby? Like what would be your masterpiece that you would want to create? Because if you're able to create this type of amazingness, because I can't imagine this was done on a huge budget. You know, and that's not a dig at them or anything. It's like you can tell this wasn't huge money was getting dumped into this, but I would love to see what these guys can do with a major like studio backing them up. Because it's just so, like, for example, like Lonnie's character, like how did they get him to emit as much emotion as they did? Because the only thing that I can compare this to was like when they did the Blair Witch Project and how they purposely like starved some of the cast members until like they almost went delirious in the woods and all that. Like that's almost where I'm at with some of it. Like what was their vision and how did they portray that in such a way that, like, yes, like obviously, you know, hats off to Lonnie and Ezra for their acting, but you always need someone like a coach or a leader to kind of pave the way, to kind of show you like, hey, this is what we're trying to get. Like I would love to know what they were basically like what they were envisioning and, you know, how it all portrayed. If that was like, what was their muse, I guess. I don't even know what the right word will be there, but what was it, like what was it that they were kind of talking to them throughout it? Because some of these things, like, yes, it could come natural, but like you need someone to kind of tell you exactly like what you're going through, what you're feeling, like to portray these emotions. Like I would love to know like what they were channeling to get that out of them, because it was, like I said, like both these actors deserve all the credit and both these directors. I mean, I'm blown away that this wasn't picked up sooner.
Well,
yeah, I think this is the one they said they were shopping around. They wanted the right team behind it.
Yeah.
Like I remember the Q&A at Fantastic Fest, and for them to bring up that I think they only could shoot them to either 4 to 6 hours a day.
Yep.
And after that, they had to stop.
Yep.
In between takes, they were doing homework.
Yep.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, they brought that up when we were doing interviews for the Gen, and I said, "Wait, you did what?"
Yeah.
And I was like,
"That's even more like, yeah, that's even like these are two special." I think you said it was David and was it Justin that you said?
Yep. David and
Justin Powell and And David, yeah.
Yeah. So these two guys are geniuses. In my like, so okay, hold up. So they were doing this in like 4-hour chunks.
Yeah, because they say because of the labor laws,
Labor
they
laws
can't shoot
is.
but so much at a time
Yep.
with children.
Yep.
That's even more spectacular.
And they said that's why they had to make every moment count. Everything had to count, like no wasted scenes.
I mean, wow. Okay, that's awesome.
See, you officially just broke Jorge, Lucas.
Yeah.
So
because when you think about it, again, when you're shooting with children and it's of extremely low budget film, this is a low budget independent film.
Yep.
To do that, normally with children, if you're doing films, you gotta set aside for mistakes and everything of that nature. And I remember hearing these two young men talk, not the directors, but the actors. And they were very adamant of this is what happened on set. This is the emotion they asked us to produce, and they did things to produce these emotions out of us. And then we would have to do this and then go do homework. And you're like, what?
What?
How do you do homework after? How do you do homework after this?
Right. That's why I pulled this this image up right here. I'm just like, bro, like my man Lonnie should be like, he might need to get some therapy after this because low key, like this is just, I don't know, man. I don't know.
When he threw that little towel over the guy's face, I loved it.
Realistically, I was like, yeah, nah, I ain't trying to see that. Yeah.
He's like, look, I just don't want to see the face. I'm fine with anything. I just do not want to see his face here.
Yeah, I'm just not gonna do it. But yeah, you guys, we've literally been talking about this for 52 minutes now. Spoiler review. It's probably one of our longest we've ever done. And the fact is that me and Lucas have not seen this movie for a year. Jorge has just seen it, and we were able to do this much.
Hey, but now that it's officially out on Shudder, we can watch it again.
Right.
Other than that, it happened to be through press. You get a screener for it, and you're like, Jorge needs to watch this movie.
Exactly.
So we could bring another person in to do kind of a retro / spoiler review of this movie that we both loved last year when we saw it.
Right.
On that note, you guys, we are out. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, on Facebook. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're not, if you've never seen any of our reviews, make sure you continue to watch what we got. We got a lot of things coming down the pipeline. I think we got a review for The Green Knight coming up. Later on, a possible spoiler review for The Suicide Squad. Fear Street trilogy. We're going to try to go through that. So stay tuned. We got a lot coming at you guys. Have a good night, everybody.